All right, everybody. Well, hey, we are back with our next amazing special guest on International Podcast Day. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy
Oh,
because without
please.
this guy convincing me and staying on my butt 3+ years ago about doing a podcast, I would not be where I'm at today because of his push, his gentle push a couple times, but then also what he and his amazing team, amazing family, Tracy, Alexander, everybody over there, Kim, the whole team at Podetize.com and Feed Your Brand. Big kudos to, and always excited, the first guy I always invite to anything because this guy just is a wealth of knowledge. He's got a passion for helping other podcasters succeed. And so you're going to enjoy our next 30+ minutes we've got with Mr. Tom Hazzard from Feed Your Brand podcast. What's going on, Tommy boy?
Dude, oh my gosh. It's crazy. Things are really kind of nuts. I don't know if you've experienced this, but the podcast world has really been exploding this year in many ways. I mean, unless you had a podcast that's like sports related, and back in the spring everything was sort of shut down and there wasn't a lot to talk about, although I know that's been changing and there now is a lot of sports going on. But oh my gosh, there was so much interest, people saying, hey, well, now's the time for me to start my podcast since I'm home a lot now, and I now need a way to reach people. And gosh, I have two different things going on here. I didn't even realize. So I had like the cell phone thing in one ear and this in the other, and I don't want to hear my cell phone right now. Anyway, so it's been quite a year, and I know there's a lot of people that have lost work, have lost business, are suffering, and I'm very sensitive to that, and I certainly I don't like hearing when somebody's struggling. But what has been really exciting and heartening is to see so many people, new people, taking action and taking control of their own lives and their businesses and moving themselves forward in some way. We've all had to adapt, right? How many events did we travel to every year, Scott? I mean, tons, right?
Yeah, when you think about Podfest and Podcast Movement and Traffic and Conversion Summit, and then the other things that we're going to, you guys at Sheep Podcasts, and
Right.
yeah, then your pop-up events that you were doing too as
Oh
well.
my gosh, that was such a huge part of our business plan for 2020. And we did it in January and February. We would do these podcast pop-up events at any event. It didn't have to be a podcasting event, but it was a way to give attendees and speakers and event organizers a way to really get the word out, get more exposure for the event and value to all the participants, and just amplify their message. Fantastic. We loved it. We had so many resources allocated to that this year. And then you get to March and it's like, where's your sound effects with the car crash screeching, right? You got to just bring it. Yeah. You got to bring it to a screeching halt. It's like, all right, well, that plan's not happening this year. May not even happen some of next year. So, I mean, everybody had to pivot a little bit, at least. But I'm a big believer in not just hoping things are going to get better, waiting for circumstances to change. Well, we can't do what we plan to, so we're just going to sit back and wait and hope. No. I'm not that type. You need to take action, take control of your business or life. At least that's what I believe. And podcasting is a huge way to do that. It's certainly a safe haven of free speech. It's one of the things that I really love about it. And you can provide great value out there to who you're serving with your show, and you can get tremendous value out of it for yourself and your business or whatever your purpose in podcasting is. I know everybody doesn't podcast for business, although most of the people that I work with do. But yeah, there's some exciting stuff. I should share with you, had a fun discussion yesterday with a new customer who's got a beer connoisseur type of a podcast. And they work with all these microbreweries all around the country, and we're putting this strategy in place where the podcast is going to shine a light on this week's craft beer, and there's limited supply, and you can participate and get it. Oh, there he is. And it was
I think Doug's
awesome.
on here
Doug's
watching.
on
Doug's
there.
on here.
Yeah, and I loved it. And I'm like, this is somebody who's already podcasting. That's why, I can talk a little bit about it, right? Can already talk about, is already podcasting. And I think there's so many exciting ways that this business can grow, not just their podcast and their market. He's going to know I'm excited about it because he didn't know I was going to talk about this right now, right? I told him I was excited about it yesterday, but really it's been so much on my mind. So many opportunities using the podcast to serve people, to lead generate, and really help a company grow that, maybe they wouldn't have been thinking about had they not had to kind of pivot maybe how they were reaching customers and how they were serving customers, how they were building community, so many opportunities. And I already have another podcast that's in a different industry that I think this beer podcast is a great model for applying in another industry. So I just love helping people market and grow their business. And it's just podcasting and video casting is the fuel, right? If long as you can do it, because that's something I can't do for you, Scott, right? You were like, you're not into podcasting 3 years ago. You're like, no, I'm doing everything on video. I'm doing live streams. I'm doing all this stuff. It's like, okay, I can't push you. I am not going to drag you into podcasting.
Yep.
It won't work. You won't record, right? And unless you record, that's a great thing about podcasting in terms of, people get overloaded, right, with tactical things they have to do in business. And when you're new and bootstrapping, you're going to do everything yourself. I did it too in this business like 6 years ago. I was the chief everything officer. Now we've got 60 plus employees. And it's like really serious operation. But you do what you have to start. You bootstrap. You're going to do it all yourself. But when you get to that point where you're still doing things you shouldn't be doing, then get some support. And at the end of the day, at least with our clients, all you got to do is record, upload, and you're done. We take it from there. And, some people see that right away and it's a perfect fit. Other people take a year or two. That's okay. I really remember when that phone call came from you, Scott. You're like, yeah, no, I'm ready. It's time to start podcast. I'm like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, basically it was about a 2-month journey. It was April in San Diego on a boat. And you're like, you got all this video. I'm like, nah, it's all this work. I don't want to step on anybody else's shoes. Let's do another podcast. And then the end of May, I almost think I called you from the Dominican where I was at. All right, we made the notice there when our friends that were doing it, like, oh, we're going to stop it. And I looked at Steph. Steph looked at me. It's like, okay, we know the first call we're making when we get back home. And you were the first call. But the whole point is, so many people, and I want to bring this out here for everybody. A lot of people think that podcasting is just the audio. I got to sit down and just record the audio. Yeah, and that's great. You just got to record something, but you made it very simple. And that was one of the big hurdles. Like, I don't want to do all this extra work. And you're like, you don't have to do anything that you're already delivering content out to, right?
Right. That's the thing. For you, because of what you were already doing, it was almost like repurposing content another way. But then you also got a lot more value out of your content than you were getting, because you were putting it out on social media, and like that's where it lived.
Yep.
Right. And I love social media. It's great to use social media to help raise awareness, to spread the word, right, of what your value you're providing. But if everybody stays out there in social media, you're sort of missing the point. The point, use social media to get the word out, but then all roads need to come back to you, to your website, to your, and I know your podcast is the same way. That goes out on all these different apps. But if everybody stays on those apps and don't leave that phone and come to your website, or go to their browser on their phone, come to your website, whatever, to get more value, to get links, resources, whatever, and then see whatever else you have to offer them. And of course, you, Scott, in the note business are a great example of this. I mean, you're providing value to your podcast community for free, but if they're really going to move themselves forward in business, they got to take action and take a course, or purchase a done for you program, or join a mastermind, whatever. They got to do something to move themselves forward. And that's part of the action that I think is so needed. I've talked to a lot of people in the last 6-7 months, as I always do in business, and they are either doing one of three things: either contracting because they're fearful of the future, or they're kind of treading water and waiting to see, or they're taking action. And I'm finding those that are taking action more often than not are also either already podcasting or starting a new one, but they're taking control of their lives. They are moving their businesses forward. They're finding different revenue streams. They're finding alternative ways to provide value, to reach people. And to me, it's just taking advantage of technology that's already been there. And, boy, if you were selling, webcams, you're loving life, because they've been like selling out on Amazon, everybody needing external webcams and things like that. And Zoom, of course, is killing it. But to me, that's a sign that business is recovering.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the restaurant industry is really severely impacted. That's horrible what they're dealing with, among other things. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be like, hey, everything's all rosy. I mean, obviously it's an extraordinary year, but except for certain key industries, I'll tell you what, there's no shortage of listeners wanting to consume podcast content. Mm-hmm. In all sorts of different things. We're seeing an increase in listenership, again, across the board, except for sports being the big one. And that's rebounded a little bit too. But that was one of the big ones that was hurting early. So, yeah. So I'm bullish on podcasting still. So right. Exciting.
Well, and that's the thing. You guys have become, over the last couple of years, you've built Podetize into the powerhouse, helping people to get the word out, but also monetize. So talk a little about some of the services. You guys are officially the largest podcast production company for full service.
Yep. Largest podcast production company in the United States, serving just a large number of, hundreds and hundreds of podcasters just like you and like I started out too. And we're just helping them get more out of the whole experience, to market and grow their businesses, to build their communities, to lead generate, whether it's for customers specifically, or everybody has a different need in it when you get down to the details, or maybe I should say a different goal, but it all starts with the same thing: being found, right? And getting more people aware of who you are and what you're doing. And that is really what it's all about. All you got to do is record, upload, and you're done. And we take it from there. We even incentivize you. If you have guests, we incentivize your guests to spread the word for you in a way that is in their best interest. So they always do it, or almost always do it, but it's like helpful to them, but it also is beneficial to you. And let's see. And then our platform, boy, we launched it in August. Completely redid our client portal. Are you in it now, Scott? The new client portal? Yeah. Our all new application, which is custom coded. We've been working on that. It's been quite an effort and expense over, half of the year here, but launched. And what it did was provided even more value to all our customers and to all the new customers, because number one, the user interface is easy and really friendly. It is fast. I don't even want to ask you, Scott, how long you would wait sometimes for a page to reload when you submitted an episode. So, but it was
you've always been pretty good.
on the old one,
right?
It's
still been pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, I never really complained. I never found an issue with it.
Well, that's good. That's good. But we recognize there were some issues. So anyway, the new application's so much faster. It's all built on Amazon's infrastructure and backbone. We're using Amazon's cloud distribution network to serve all of our clients' podcasts all over the world the fastest way possible in whatever country people are requesting it in. And we're built for scale. So that's been exciting. And of course, our ad insertion software, that's the biggie, that our whole system makes it easy for you to promote the fastest way people can make money on the podcast is to promote their own stuff, their own services, products, courses, books, speaking events, even virtual, whatever it is that you have in business to make money with. That's the first thing you should be pitching to your audience in your show, as long as your show's in alignment with that. And if it's not, I don't know why it isn't, because we're all in business in some way here. So really, you can put promotions into all your episodes, ads, without re-editing them, and change them at any time on demand. Just upload a new one, boom, it'll replace them. And you could do multiples. I have 9 ads running in one of my shows right now, 3 different scripts, 3 different voice artists, and we rotate them all. You only hear the same episode, or same ad every 10th episode. So that's really the incredible value. The old school way, or if you're editing your own you'd edit it in, it'd be in that episode forever. And I don't know, does every podcaster here today realize that you are going to get more plays on your first half dozen episodes that you ever published than any other you ever do? And I hope that's why, but just in case, it's because what, I find your podcast now, I'm going to listen to the latest episode, maybe the latest couple. If I like it, I'm going to go back and listen to your earliest episodes and see how it's changed over time, how it evolved. Or maybe if it's great enough content, I want to binge through all of it. But I'm at least going to go back and listen to those first few episodes. Even if I crash out and stop listening, I'm probably going to listen to your first half dozen. So those are going to get the most play. Why should anybody listening to that, who it's new to them now, be listening to some old outdated promotion from half a year ago or years ago? And that's what we're talking about here. You don't have to do that. You can promote what's current, relevant, what's happening now. And, you can promote International Podcast Day here. And then later today, push a button, those ads are gone, new ads are in for the next thing. So that's the big advantage, helping you get the best return on the time you're investing in all this content you're making. And now, if you don't have your own stuff to promote, but you have enough listeners, you can have outside sponsors, and you can find your own, or we can provide them to you. And that's really where we're going, is continuing to help people monetize when they have that audience that gets up to a level that's attractive to others.
And then let's talk about that. Where are you finding, you say you're helping people out with, what kind of levels are you looking at, or did people need to look at to attract those other outside sponsors that you've seen?
So the way we're doing it, as long, others, in comparison to others, others that want to monetize your podcast with sponsors will say, hey, you need to have at least 20,000 downloads per episode or something like that. But that's not us. I don't care about that. If you've got enough episodes published, enough content where you're getting at least 10,000 downloads per month across all your episodes, now we can start to monetize. And admittedly, it'll be small numbers initially, but as you grow your audience and get to the point where you start to get, $15,000 a month, $20,000 a month, you start to make some significant money that certainly offsets your cost of producing the podcast, if nothing else. But eventually you can actually turn a podcast into a very profitable endeavor. It just depends on the scale. So, because the way we're doing it, you don't need one sponsor to advertise only on one show. I could take a group of shows that have a similar audience that are going to be a good fit for the sponsor and advertise across all of them to create the kind of volume a sponsor's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily, the sponsor isn't going to waste their time making individual deals with a lot of lower volume listener podcasts, but that's what we could do, is bring that together and curate those shows, find the right ones, and then, but it's not like we're going to force a sponsor on any customer either. We're going to come to you with an offer saying, hey, we have this sponsor, probably a good fit for your audience, would like to advertise on your show among others. Are you interested? Here's what you would make. And they can say yes or no. When our platform, you have complete control over your show. You can either get your own sponsors and keep all the money and just put the ads into your own shows. You can advertise your own stuff, or you can participate in our ad marketplace and then make money with a group of other, valuable shows too. So that's exciting. That's the future. And really it previously only like the top 2% of shows could really monetize with sponsors or get the attention of big sponsors. By doing this, we're really trying to make the 98% of podcasts out there that couldn't monetize effectively before actually monetize and become a profitable endeavor. So
basically just focusing on the micro influencer side of business that is a lot of need, because we all know so many companies have didn't advertise because they didn't have events to go to the last 9 months.
Right.
And they still have that revenue. They still have that need to advertise to try to attract clients. And they can find an audience that's already been curated and created and being served on a regular basis. It's an easy kind of plug and play kind of model, like your ads are plug and play for the most part, right?
Right. Absolutely. It is. And it's really very simple. I mean, the thing that I always sort of cringe at when I, have a call with a new prospect, they've got this great show and they're producing great content. They've got all these products and services that they, are trying to sell, and they're not using their podcast effectively to do that. I understand if maybe in the first 2 months you start a show, you don't want to put ads into it because you're trying to build that audience. You're trying to, share what kind of value you're going to be giving them. You want to make it all about the listener. That's great. Once you establish that, you get into a rhythm, and then your audience, as long as you're going to keep providing them this content they're looking forward to every week, they're not going to mind if you need to run an ad in it, because they want you to keep giving them the content. And you can actually talk about that. When I first started taking ads in one of my shows, I addressed that elephant in the room and said, hey guys, want to let you know we're, because we were doing like 5 episodes a week when we started our first podcast. It was not a small effort, right? I was like, hey, we're going to keep providing you this value, bringing you the content. We hope you really enjoy it. But we are going to be bringing, having some ads in some of our episodes with things that we believe are going to be relevant to you, that you might be interested in, or certainly you're not going to mind, but it's how we're going to be able to justify continuing to bring you this content for free. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, I'm in. It never turned off we never got any less plays or, because of running ads. Now, if you really are going to run ads from a company that's not making sure the ads are in alignment with the audience, now that you might have a little more backlash on, especially if you kind of like an old school radio show. If you're going to do 2 or 3 commercials every 15 minutes, no, that's not going to do well. That's not, you want it to be relevant to the listener, relevant to the audience, and hopefully something useful for them. So anyway, yeah, that's what we're all about.
Now, where do you see, obviously with this, with the new monetization and the sponsorships and things, where, God knows, who knows? I know you're already planning 2021.
Oh yeah.
Even though we're 90 plus days out, what are you kind of your big goals for Podetize and your podcast over the next 12 months?
Our goals are really to reach a lot more people. We had some infrastructure things we had to get in place, some scalability things that are really now in place. I want to make sure everybody in the industry knows the name Podetize, understands what we're doing. So we're going to be doing a lot more marketing, but also, well, we have a lot of things where we have planned not just to reach and serve more podcasters, because the more podcasters we have on Podetize, the more opportunities we'll be able to bring everybody, right? So that's a big part of the goal. The other part of the goal is an extension of the name Podetize, not just monetizing through advertisements, but monetizing through, I would say merchandise is another exciting one, that for not just the listeners, but I mean, not just for the podcasters, but to benefit the listeners too. I mean, there's a lot more ways to monetize that's exciting and coming up. So there's a little hint. But we have some seriously aggressive plans, and we also have, it's been, COVID really set us back quite a bit, but we have our recording microphone that is finally getting off the ground. It's been a real challenge with all, I mean, I can't go to the factory to review and approve things without spending 2 weeks in quarantine. And that's just not practical in many ways. And then there's other things that, came up about that made it challenging given the whole quarantine and all that. But it's finally coming to reality. And that's an exciting thing here in before the end of the year, before the end of the fourth quarter. So
nice.
I'm excited about that. It's been very frustrating, challenging, but anyway, a big need. So that's a whole big marketing effort that we're going to get the name Podetize out to the market, and people that are thinking, hey, I'm going to buy a podcast, but they haven't thought of anything else, are going to learn about Podetize and all the potential for them in working with us in other ways.
Now, with everything being like it is, and I know your partner in crime over there, Tracy, obviously was impacted a lot with no travel for speaking and other things like that too. Obviously, is she leveraging more podcasts, more articles as guesting, and some of the things that she's been doing to help boost that and replace that kind of engagement or marketing activity?
Yeah, obviously a lot more virtual events, virtual keynotes. She gave a keynote at the Utah Podcast Summit, the closing keynote. And getting involved with other organizations. Now, certainly, Scott, we always enjoyed going to podcast events, but honestly, we've been participating in all sorts of other events, other different kinds of business events that are not podcasting events, but have the right people there who would benefit from podcasting and going to those events. So she's constantly busy on, I think she actually is doing some other event right now, honestly, as I'm doing this. So yeah, she's still out there speaking. It's just different. It's not the traveling on a plane. In some ways, that's been nice because you could do a lot more events in a short period of time when you couldn't travel from, cities across the country as quickly as easily. It makes it less expensive, obviously, to participate, but at the same time, we do miss traveling and connecting with people. I can't believe how long it's been since we've been in the same room.
I know.
It's just,
right?
That never happened, right? And it's just nutty, but it is what it is. And we're rolling with it. So there's like nothing we're not trying when it comes to that and considering. And actually we stepped up our video presentation game. Actually, I'm not using it today because I'm not like giving a slide presentation, but we had, we've upped our video presentation game where it's much more of like a broadcast quality video where you can put slides over your shoulder, or you can move yourself to a small part of the screen and then show something. But what we realized is we want to maintain good eye contact with the people that we're speaking to. We didn't just want to hide behind a slide and hear our voice. And so, we invested in some different video equipment and camera equipment and more green screens and all that. And we're actually starting to do this. Tracy and I do our weekly client-only coaching calls every Wednesday, and usually we'd sit side by side like this on one camera. We're not going to do that anymore. She's going to be more comfortable sitting on her side of the desk. I'm on this side. You're going to have a picture of each of us on there with then other things that we're doing too. That's how we're embracing this situation. And while on the one hand, I hate normalizing this virus, and I do look forward to when we don't have to think about it anymore and can just go about our lives in a normal way and everything is just fine. Until then, we're going to make the best of it and not look at it as an obstacle, but an opportunity.
Well, and so I think that's the only way to approach it. Is you have to do that, look as an opportunity and get flexible. If you're if you're so stuck in the old way of doing business and you're sitting there crying what you should have been, got to get creative.
Yeah, my mantra for years has been hope is not a strategy. It really is not. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't hope for things. It's fine in human nature to hope for things, but you hope that the weather's not going to be, so hot that a fire's going to start, right? And that here in California, you have a lot of these fires. You're going to hope for something like that. Sure. In business, hope is not a strategy. And that's, I guess, one of my biggest messages. Anybody out there with a podcast, with a business who's not getting enough out of it, don't just hope it's going to get better and wait for things to happen. Take action. You're always going to be in better shape if you take action.
Now, for those that are starting a podcast and you look back at all the different ones you've done, because you guys started off in 3D printing and have a variety of different shows. Do you want to share a little bit about some of those and first time podcasting tips for those that are looking to launch?
Sure. And actually, I'd also like to invite anybody who is a first-time podcaster looking to launch, and maybe you are bootstrapping it. I totally respect that. I've been there. I have a free opportunity for you. Go to podetize.com/bootcamp, and you can take our free course. We made it free when all this COVID stuff started happening in March. It used to be something we charged $500 for. And we're like, what can we do to help people and help move along? We made it free. It's like 7 hours of content and downloads, real good value tools to help move you along. So go take it. We don't hold anything back. That you'll learn that about me and Tracy. It's not our style to hold something back, and we're going to tell you enough and then not tell you everything unless you pay us. That's not us. We tell you everything, but you got to do it yourself. Our business is people paying us either for DIY hosting, and there's a lot of great features on our site for that, to support DIYers in better ways than other platforms do. But if you're, when eventually you need to be working more on your business than in your business, you're going to come to us and spend a little money to save time. That's really our market at the end of the day. And we do it to an extent that no one else producing podcasts really does. So anyway, but as a new podcaster, we dove in, we immersed ourselves, and we did it the hard way. Of course, we listened to Pat Flynn, we listened to John Lee Dumas, we listened to dozens of podcasts on podcasting. We watched a couple dozen videos on podcasting, read all these books. And what we found is everybody was holding something back. And we could see by, studying them all and realizing, where was the overlaps, where were the holes, where were the opportunities, and started experimenting and came up with our own understandings, beliefs, and then strategies for how to get more out of a podcast. And we went very quickly. We were written up in Forbes in 2015, I think, for having one of the fastest growing podcasts. Went from 0 to 30,000 listeners in a very quick period of time. And we were monetizing with sponsored ads. And yes, it was in 3D printing. It's a very geeky niche category. Part of my interest in life and past career involved 3D printing.
Mm-hmm.
So, we found out, hey, in a very, very niche category, you can build a massive audience, provide a lot of value, and start making money. And then we built a website, monetized the website. And we still have that podcast today. And our most recent sponsor this year, Hewlett-Packard, sponsored 25 episode series. So, I mean, there are different ways to monetize and different levels of doing it. And I love it. But what I love about it is anybody can start, anybody can compete, anybody can benefit, the whole podcasting ecosystem. And we firmly believe your website is a key part of your platform. And you need to be using your website effectively and tracking like your keyword rankings and your traffic to your website in order to be able to really understand if your podcast is growing or not. So it's, your podcast is huge. Your website is a huge part of it. And we quickly found that there's so much more advantage you can get out of your podcast that goes beyond the audio show.
Right.
And that's really what we built our own team and our own systems to do it. And as we experimented and figured out what was working, and then, people we knew in business would come to us and say, hey, that's great what you're doing. Can you do that for me? And honestly, the business grew that way. And eventually it became its own entity as it grew so much and had its own dedicated staff. And now it's become Podetize, this whole company. And it's honestly all I do. Hey, there's Doug.
There he is. So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Tom? As we say, go to podetize.com or what's
That's
it?
Podetize.com is the best way. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage and you can book a call on my calendar if you'd like to have a Zoom call or a phone call, whatever you're comfortable with, and see how we can support you to get more out of your podcast.
Great stuff. Thanks for being a part of International Podcast Day, Tom, as always, bud. Thanks for everything.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, Scott. Anytime.
Good stuff.